this is the last of our discussions of primary pigments. We'll end it with yellows. Now, yellows are difficult to find in a single pigment. Most of the yellows are multiple pigment. And for this reason, I've included earth colors tonight, the ochres, and I'll discuss those later. And I noticed that while I was doing this study of the primary pigments, and I looked around, and I thought, no, what pigment is used the most in nature? And when you look around, you'll see that it's blue. And that's the reason why the reds and the yellows jump out at you, you know, in the flowers and the things that you see around you. Now, when I say primary pigment, that means blue. There are other pigments that are mixtures of the primary pigment that are much more prevalent in our everyday life, green being one of them, which is a mixture of yellow and blue. And of course the browns or earth colors, which are a mixture of all three of the primary colors. And I'm going to discuss the mixture of these colors later, along with the primary single pigment colors, earth colors, and we'll look at those in depth. Now with that, we'll go ahead and finish up our primary colors with yellow. You know, during my discussion of these colors, when I initially started, I started with the reds, and I was talking during that demonstration. I found that very difficult to do. My right brain sort of wasn't engaged at that time. I was using a lot of left brain stuff. So again, I went ahead and painted these out before we started our discussion. Now, at the beginning of this, I told you I was going to show you the earth colors. These are basically earth colors. The ochres, yellow ochre, French ochre, which is much the same as this burgundy yellow ochre here. You can see, you know, why, you know, if you want a pure yellow on your palette, why you don't want to use these earth colors. Look, the Mars yellow, to me, is really a brown, a yellowish brown. So, you know, I use these earth colors a lot, particularly in landscapes. But for a primary color palette, these are really not a consideration. Now again, we're going to look at the cadmium colors, and again they have a health hazard associated with them. You really don't want to spray them or anything. I really like the cads. They go on nice, and they have a nice feel when you put them on. All these would be candidates for the primary yellow on my palette. Now, understand that there's a lot of different manufacturers of colors that I use here. They're not all the same manufacturer, and so the names usually indicate or have a strong affiliation with the manufacturer. Now, this lemon yellow here is, look, it's not anywhere close to this yellow lemon up here. It definitely shifts over into the reds a lot. These are all pigment yellows 37s, and these are all pigment yellows, and you can see the terms there. Pigment yellow 119, I would have probably called that pigment brown. But anyway, here's another one, and some of these are hard to find. Bismuth vanadate yellow, beautiful yellow. It doesn't quite have the finish that the CADS does, but it's a beautiful yellow. And another yellow. I pulled out some very old watercolors, which have a different composition. Actually, they come from Japan. They're the antique Japanese watercolors. This particular one is called Antique Lemon. It's pigment yellow 3. It is a very good candidate for the single pigment yellow on your palette. The nice thing about yellows, You got a lot of beautiful candidates here that you can use, even though there's very few of them that are single pigments. You can use any of these and it would work fine. This one, to me, shifts a little bit to the red side. This one here shifts a little bit to the blue side. And that, very hard to see, but to me, to my eyes, it does. I am probably going to use this PY184, the Bismuth Vanadate Yellow. It seems to be the most neutral, and I like that color. Now, we're going to go on to the later presentations. I'm going to mix the colors. We're going to mix all three primaries. I'm going to show you how to mix the various primaries and the various ways of mixing them. But before I do that, I'm going to go to the earth colors, and we're going to look at the browns, because that's a mixture of all the primary colors in varying degrees. So with that, we'll conclude the yellows. Again, beautiful colors, just not a whole lot of them. As far as the single pigments go, there's a lot more that have multiple pigments in them, and they're equally beautiful too. So that concludes this presentation on yellows.